All right, now we have Representative Murphy coming on the air, so I'm going to go ahead and bring him on the air. Representative Murphy, is that you?
Hi, Caleb. How are you today?
Very well. How are you tonight?
Very well. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's our pleasure. Hey, I wanted to kick the show off first off by asking you a little bit about the bills that you're involved with that are coming up before the Indiana General Assembly this year.
Sure. Well, there's a couple. The primary one is my effort, House Bill 1219, to keep the names and addresses of gun permit holders in the state of Indiana private. I was shocked to learn that this information is public record. Anybody can go and file a Freedom of Information request and get the name, the address, the height, the weight, the hair color, the eye color, all this personal information about anyone in the state of Indiana who has applied for or currently holds a gun permit. And I think that's dangerous. It's dangerous for people who own guns, and it's dangerous for people who do not own guns.
Yeah, I mean, and what was the and just for people who are listening to the show again tomorrow and on their iTunes, what was the bill number again?
It's House Bill 1219.
House Bill 1219. All right. So you guys all out there who are listening heard that. Again, this is, and I apologize to our national listeners for the Indiana centricism that we've got going on tonight. But obviously, this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, living out here in Indianapolis. And so, if you're out there listening, from Fort Wayne to Evansville and everywhere in between, I won't say South Bend because those Notre Dame guys are weird, but House Bill 2012, and contact your representatives, let them know to support this bill. So
well, I'll tell you too, Caleb, this does have national implications because some of the media outlets have already, in Indiana, published some street-level information about gun permit holders. Some have been a little more responsible than others and only published, aggregate demographic data. But the bottom line is, you know this, any high school kid can create a website, a Facebook page, a blog, and all they have to do is get this information, and everybody who owns has a gun permit is essentially outed. And, it's easy. It costs you $30 to get the information. And so this has national implications because if it can happen in Indiana, it can happen in an awful lot of states. And we need people across the country to be vigilant about Second Amendment rights in their state as well.
Absolutely. And now I've heard some criticism, obviously, from some of the anti-gun factions out there of your bill, saying that it would prevent law enforcement from being able to do their job or being able to use the database so that they would know what's going on if they were to, say, be looking for information on someone. Can you address that concern?
Sure. I have an exception in the bill for law enforcement for legitimate investigative purposes. Certainly, nobody wants, criminals to be able to flout the law, and for the law enforcement people not to, to be able to know if there's a permit holder or an applicant, quite frankly, for a gun permit who, because of mental instability or other conditions, depending on your state laws, they shouldn't have one. But the fact is that criminals today have access to this database, and they can target you if you own a gun, if you own a gun and have a gun permit, to steal your gun from your home, and they can also find out who does not have a gun permit and target their homes for burglary. So it's dangerous in two ways.
Yeah. Now, how easy is it? I mean, because obviously we've been talking about this database issue and focusing more on what's been done by, the paper down in Bloomington and a little bit on what the Indy Star published. But, say I wasn't a gun owner. How easy is it for me right now, with things being what they are, to get access to this? I mean, is it as simple as calling up the Indiana State Police and requesting a copy?
Absolutely. All you have to do is file an FOI request with the Indiana State Police and pay your fee, which I think is close to $30, and I think it's $32 actually. And within a matter of days, maybe a couple of weeks, by law, they have to give you a disc with all this information. and then
wow.
there's no law that regulates what you do with that information. And so
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, and I was shocked to find that out, quite frankly. And sometimes there's sometimes when something happens you don't quite want to happen, like the Bloomington story, the Indianapolis story. It calls to wakes people up. It calls your attention the greater danger. And in some ways, we're fortunate, in a strange kind of twist of circumstances, we are fortunate that the media chose to publish some of this data, which wasn't, they didn't take it to the limits they could have taken it to, but it has awakened me and many of my fellow NRA members, for example, to the possibility of their gun permit data being, open to anybody.
Absolutely. Now, this is a personal curiosity for me because I've been involved in this story. How did you hear about it? Were you contacted by a constituent? Was it one of the NRA alerts that came out?
Well, I first heard about the Bloomington paper, and I found it hard to believe, quite honestly. And then a guy I know who's an advocate for the NRA here in the state of Indiana, a member of the Friends of the NRA, contacted me. He knew I was a state legislator, and he knew that I'm an A+ rated NRA legislator, and asked me to look into it to find out if this is really true, and if it was true, what could be done to protect the privacy and the rights of gun permit holders in the state of Indiana in the future. You can't go backwards in law usually, but you can sure protect gun permit holders from having their information released in the future.
Absolutely. And hey, now for guys out there listening, if you've got a question that you'd like us to ask Representative Murphy, hit up the Gun Nuts Radio inbox, gunnutsradio@gmail.com. That's gunnutsradio@gmail.com. Now a couple other things. Obviously, that there's your bill to protect the data of concealed carry permit holders. There are a couple of other bills that affect gun owners coming up in Indiana as well. Can you give us a little background on those?
Sure. First of all, the second half of my bill is a repeat of one I attempted to pass last year, which prohibits local government from restricting the sale of guns and ammo during a crisis. Right now in the state of Indiana, and probably in other states as well, if you have a natural disaster or other kind of civil disaster, local officials can actually restrict the sale. They can shut down the sale of guns and ammo, and I think that may be exactly when you need it the most, quite frankly.
It's like one of those the bills that some states passed after Hurricane Katrina to prevent that from happening again in other states, right?
Exactly right. And I'll tell you, if we get in a situation like Katrina in Indianapolis or any other city in America, I'd rather have my fellow NRA members have access to guns and ammo than have it restricted.
Absolutely. And so that's the second half of your bill. Are there any other bills that we've got coming up?
Yes, there's a representative from Bloomington named Peggy Welch, a Democrat, a good conservative Democrat, who is attempting to do something similar to my bill. Her bill, unfortunately, provides an exception for academic research. The problem with that is anybody can say I'm doing academic research, and then they would be exempted. So I'm working with her, and she's, I think, willing to compromise, and we're hoping to either shut down that exemption or restrict it so much it's not a problem. And then a good friend of mine, Bob Bischoff from southeastern Indiana, and I have teamed up on another bill which I'm co-authoring, which makes sure to protect Second Amendment rights for people who may be carrying a gun to and from work.